Hi, hey there guys, Sam here with you. It's Friday afternoon, February the 22nd. I'm going to wrap up here with a look at Ripple to the dollar buy request. So it's another, boy, really, really ugly duckling here. We got 320, we had 25 cents. Just horrific. Well, so in the interest of trying to identify if there's any potential for some bullish action here, could this relentless correction be over? There's multiple ways to count this, but when in doubt, I'm always looking to try and simplify. So if I just work it as a WX and this being the X, and then we're just into an ABC to finish here, there's a case for that. It does simplify, and it's technical. So we'd have to allow for an ending diagonal here, which is not the prettiest I've seen. But note here, see, I'm just wicking off this low because I'm checking for do we have new lows, and we get a double bottom here, but it's very technical. So if I pulling from the length of the 1 to the 2, well, here's the right on there. Let's get right on there. Okay, so here's the 1. We go right to the 50, and again, God knows how many hundreds of times I've shown you guys this. So there's the 50, right to target reaction. We come back, we check the low again. All right, so we get a double bottom. So they get, if you missed it the first time, you got it a second time probably here. Likely got this. All right, so here's golden zone. Now that target has been unrealized. So you had this followed by a golden zone. Now the double bottom here, is that going to hold us? Well, this target is still down here. It's still there. What is that? 20, call it 21 cents. Still there. So you can't turn a blind. You can't ignore it. Like, oh, okay, well, lows in, we double bottom. Maybe. So I'm on an 8-hour here. As I should mention, I'm on 8-hour on Bitstamp here. So if we're going to have a double bottom here, which I'm not convinced of, but we certainly will have a technical pivot. Well, let's see here. Let's clear some of this off here and see if it makes sense. Could there be a low, and do we have enough bullish action here to lean into the idea that this double bottom is going to end the correction? Right, so the A, the B, and the C, you wouldn't script it that way, and but it's there. So you've got this. Come here. So just drawing down here, we get this kind of price action here. So it's kind of a. Ideally, you'd see the 5. You wouldn't end up in a double bottom. So you can't eliminate the possibility that kick is there's still one more kick lower. But with that acknowledge that we have to be conscious of that. Let's go from the 8-hour. Oh, let's try a 2-hour. Okay, so here's the low. It's technically not an exact double bottom, but it's within a few cents. So I'm gonna zoom even further. All right, so if this is a contender for a low, well, we've got the start on a diagonal here to come out of this. So let me scrunch a little bit here. All right, so there's an impulse here. We've got a 1. We get a 3-wave correction. Then it looks like we go into a diagonal. So obviously we get a severe overlap of the 1. So this is perhaps the best case for bulls here, that we're in a leading diagonal of a 1-wave. Right? That's a contender. So I suppose we can't eliminate the possibility here as well, right? Knowing that algo target is still down there, and this is not a well, it's a contender here for a diagonal. So if we get this move up here, so we've just hit the 50. If we get that, well, then this is going to start to look better. It could certainly, since we've got an impulse here, this could be an A, B, and we're working through a C. As in, well, let's see, let's do it this way. So if this was the A, this was the B, we'd still be putting in the C here. So we can't eliminate the possibility that completes up here, and then we head down and we go after that lower algo target. So let's acknowledge that that's there. So if for bulls though, and my guess is people want to see if there's an opportunity to be a buyer here. Well, you're sitting right there. So if this is going to play as a leading diagonal. Let me take this off. Just remember, in a diagonal, you're looking for the trade in a diagonal. If you don't catch the 1, 2, is to look for the 4, 5. So because we get a probability zone. So The trade is to pull from the start of the 1 through the pivot of the proposed 3 and look for a reaction at the 50. Well, that's exactly what we get. Right? So now if that's going to go, if we're going to get that, well, then you could get a little more bullish here. Now, we don't know what kind of time frame that's going to take. That would put us, what would that put us at? Into mid-March, so that'd be 30 days away from this. Maybe it gets there sooner. No way to know. I'm just using the channel here for sort of a timeline. It could be there it could be there tomorrow. There's just no way to know. So, but the alternate is that, of course, we come up here, we'd finish a C wave, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we'd be finishing with an ending diagonal. So if this is A, B, we've done 1, 2, 3, 4, and we're going up for the 5 of C. So there's just no way to be definitive about it. Other than the one benefit here is that we're working from a double bottom here where we tagged an algo target twice. So if you're a bull, here's your opportunity to be long. I'd be realistic about what kind of target you'd have up here. That would make for a pretty typical one in a diagonal. So also with a diagonal, if you're measuring, good place to start is this in the same way. You take the length of the 1 through the pivot of the 3. If this is going to hold as our 4, excuse me, we'd be looking for 1618, 100. Those are contenders. So just as an algo target here, doesn't mean we can't get through it, get to the 100. But you know, this structure here looks pretty good. So I think there is a trade here to be long here off of the 50. I don't know that I'd give that a whole lot of room there because there's so many different ways this could go. So if you have a little pullback here, we go after that target. You just got to look at the math here. So if we put the stop under the 65, you'd have to be a couple of ticks. You can get a 3-to-1 there. You wait for a little pullback. Hopefully you get a little pullback. Maybe you get a little deeper here. But stop under the 65, you can get 3.2-to-1. That's not horrible. Now, understand, though, that if you get up and we hit this and we start to weaken or there's divergence or any things you'd look for to show signs of this move weakening, first assuming we get it, you got to know that likely what happens next is we just do a full retracement. So the odds are that you'd finish that and then you'd come into something like this. Maybe we come back down to test that channel. And then if indeed we're going to have a trend change, then you'd have your leading diagonal in the 1, come in for a 2, and then if you start to go, you'd need something impulsive here. So far to go. So this could be the 1 and the 2, and then you could get another diagonal because that could be the 1 of the 3. So there's lots of different ways that this can go here. So I think this is not unreasonable to have a trade here. Well, see, I've changed the draw, so let's pull that off. So it's not unreasonable here. Stop under the 65. Again, be realistic about how far you think that's likely to go. I wouldn't just buy it and walk away from it and assume that we're off to new all-time highs. So you'd want to manage that trade, but there is definitely a potential swing trade there. Looking for something up here again, going after some of those algo targets. But I certainly wouldn't be giving this a whole lot of room. Maximum, if we come down here and break this lower trend line, tag the 786, I'd just assume myself, I'd rather wait. If we're going to come down there, you could still just barely hang on to the idea that you had a diagonal, although that's unusually deep for the 4. I've seen them before, so that's a possibility here, but I wouldn't carry the stop that far because then the risk-reward dynamics are going to change, so you maybe get 1.5 to 1. It's just the risk isn't worth it. So if you take this, I'd rather get stopped out and take a very small loser here and then reevaluate. Maybe there's a play to wait for a push off of that if you get it. And then take the first little retrace and maybe you get on board that way. So no need to give this more room than is reasonable here, right? So with that said, I think that's about the only... I don't know that there's much else to really consider here. The channel seems fairly solid. You can see how nicely we hold the channel. So the 2 here and the 2 here. So I think this is a better looking channel than a set of median lines. Although you can meet the center line will act like a median line. It's just a modified shift if you think of it that way. So just for the sake of just showing you this. So if I went here and then I used this as the pivot. All right. So note what we did here. Oh, come off. All right, so then, you could do it this way. You have a slight irregularity here because of this trend line. So you'd use this as your pivot, and we get we get right to the median line. So there's your corner pocket in the context of a channel. So this is a high probability zone. When you see median lines and channels intersect, that's a place to be paying attention. Look for a reaction. Looks in exactly what we got. And then going from the low to the high, now you're back at the 50. So this is all trading very technically, but I just would be very sensitive to the possibility that this is just going to be corrective. So put it back in context, and, you know, thinking about where we've been and where we've come from. We go back to even a 4-hour. Let's be realistic about where you're likely to see that go before there's going to be some resistance. There's so much resistance. So even just the obvious ones, we just take the big B here down to our double bottom. So all of this is going to be stiff resistance to get through, right? So, but you know, if there's going to be a bull run, it will get through them eventually. So just a word of caution here. You use your money management down there. All right, guys, that's pretty much all I got to add there. Yep, that new contest that we're running, that link is underneath. So if you're on Twitter and want to participate in that, you can read all about it on our Twitter feed. There's a pinned tweet at the top, explain it to you. All right, guys, have a good week.